Welcome back to Solo Marvel Champion. Today I'm covering my top 5 villains in the game. Now when I say top 5, these are not a ranking of the most difficult or the easiest. Top 5 for me are the ones I play the most. I'm going to start off at number 5. Number 5 is Claw. I have only recently started playing him on Expert, and he is a different challenge for sure in Expert. I know for a fact that he is my most played villain out of the core villains, and he may be my most played villain out of the entire the entire game. I just play him a lot. He has 18 and 22 health on Expert, 40 health. He starts on Expert with his Immortal Claw out, so that gives him 2 side schemes. You've got Defense Network, which comes into play, and then on Expert, Immortal Claw is going to start in play as well. So if you can't get rid of this, you've got an acceleration token. The plus 10 hit points really isn't that big a deal, but this acceleration icon that early in the game, especially when he only has 6 threat on his first main scheme, yeah, I just really love this scenario. So that is number 5. This continues a trend for me with the Fantasy Flight Games cooperative LCGs in Lord of the Rings. The second scenario in the box was Journey Along the Anduin. Most played, probably in that game, that's probably my most played scenario for sure. In Arkham Horror, the card game, the second scenario was the Midnight Masks, and I have played that a whole lot as well. So Claw's a lot of fun, and I've played it so many times I get a little bit bored sometimes. Right now I'm using the Dark Riders set, which came in Age of Apocalypse, rather than Masters of Evil. It actually kind of does some of the same things that Masters of Evil does, but I really like this set. Expert, Standard 3, with Dark Riders. Claw is a really good time. So that's number 5, Claw. Number 4, I should also mention, these are in no particular order except for the very last one. So 5 through 2 are all, equally my favorites. Number 1 is probably my favorite, but until we get to number 1, these could go in any order. Number 4 comes from the first campaign expansion, and that's Crossbones. Crossbones on Expert only has a total of 30 health, 14 and 16. But when you're starting with him, his Crossbones machine gun will come into play right at the top. He also has the experimental weapons deck, which adds another experimental weapon when you are clearing or not clearing, when side schemes are advancing. It's a lot of fun. I think the reason that this scenario is so played is because it comes with 3 mod sets, and you can really customize Crossbones by picking 3 mod sets you really like. Experimental weapons is required, but I've shown in another video that you can play around with what the experimental weapons deck is as well. I have randomized Flight, Super Strength, and Telepathy. These come from the Next Evolution box. Randomize those. Whichever one you get, put that attachment into play. It's permanent in setup. This will get attached to Crossbones. And then the rest of the cards in the set make up the experimental weapons deck. So you have to bend the rules a little bit, but the FFG police aren't going to bust your door down. The game is about having fun, and that is a way to completely change Crossbones. Play him with 3 sets, and they don't have to be random. You could definitely randomize, but pick 3 mod sets that you really like. Pick something to act as the experimental weapon deck if you don't want to use the experimental weapons. and that is a really good time. So number 4 is Crossbones. Coming in at number 3, this scenario is hated by most people, and that is the Collector. I really like the Collector. The Collector's thing is he collects things. He collects your things, he collects his things. If a minion gets defeated, it goes into the collection. If he has an attachment that gets discarded, that goes into the collection as well. I think that's one of the reasons people despise this scenario so much. I can see him collecting items and people, but Ready to Rumble is a condition. Why would he collect a condition? There are a ton of skills that have uses or might get discarded because of another reason. Why would he collect skills? I think the other reason people hate him so much is it's difficult to get things out of the collection. Only once per player per round can you take something out of the collection. So too many things go into the collection, it's too hard to get things out of the collection, and there is a loss condition tied to the collection. So most people hate it. I absolutely love it because it makes me build my deck differently, and then when I start playing, it makes me play differently as well. You have to manage the collection. And I play a lot of board games. There's a lot going on in certain board games, and you know, that's just one more thing you have to manage. You know, I don't get to make an extra attack with my hero. I have to exhaust them to get a card out of the collection so that I don't lose next turn. Or I have to spend those two resources that I wanted to use to play another card to get something out of the collection. I love managing the collection. I love, you know, thinking about this scenario when I'm building a deck. I'm not going to build a deck with Ready to Rumble, Judoku skill, and any number of these other skills, or upgrades I should say, that have uses. I'm going to build maybe a more event-heavy deck, which would make Gamora a very good hero against this scenario. Actually, I've got a couple games in my playlist with Gamora against Collector 1, so yeah, I love this one. You know, think about what you're doing at deck building. Play a little bit differently. And Collector 1 can be a lot of fun. I absolutely love this scenario. That is my number 3. Coming in at number 2, we're going to go back to Rise of Red Skull, and that is the third scenario, Taskmaster. Taskmaster is a lot of fun because you can cheese it. One way or another is very good when you're playing against Taskmaster, primarily because of the side schemes. When revealed, you put a captive ally face down underneath it. I actually don't do that. When I defeat this scheme, I just draw the top one off of the captives, but once you defeat this, you get a captive into your hand, and these captives are very powerful. 0 cost. Moon Knight has a 2/2 with 3 health, and after you play him from your hand, spend a wild resource, draw 2 cards. Shang-Chi, 2/2, again, 0 cost, they're all 0 cost, and 3 health. After you play him from your hand, spend an energy resource, stun the enemy. This one, actually, I think, is the one I like the most, because once you get White Tiger, it makes clearing the other side schemes easier. Again, 0 cost, 3 health. She's a 3/1. After you play her from her hand, spend a mental, remove 3 from a scheme, and then she can swing for 3. That's 6 threat. Very good. And Elektra is the opposite. She's a 1/3. Spend a physical after you play her, deal 3 damage, and then she can swing for 3. Very good allies. And in the campaign, That's crazy because all of these that you get to, or that you have rescued, go into your deck for the rest of the campaign. If you're playing the campaign, no matter what aspect you're playing through the campaign, switch over to Justice for Taskmaster, and you'll be able to get these and add them into your deck. They are super powerful, and this is not as played for me as Crossbones, but I do play Taskmaster quite a bit. He is a lot of fun for me. That's number 4, Taskmaster. Now let's look at 5. When I look at number 5, the reason I put Collector and Taskmaster together is because the next scenario is basically those two scenarios combined and refined, and that is Project Wide Awake. Project Wide Awake does something similar to Galaxy's Most Wanted, in that if you block with allies, they go into zero tolerance, or they go under zero tolerance. And once you have so many cards under zero tolerance, you lose the game. Let's see if I can find that one. I should have had that pulled up. Here it is. Operation Zero Tolerance. After an enemy attacks and defeats an ally, place that ally face down under this scheme. So you just don't want to chump block. Use your allies, let them leave by consequential damage, but don't block with them because they're going to go under here. And X is 3 more than number of players. In solo, that's 4. You don't want 4 cards under here. And there are other ways for cards to go under Operation Zero Tolerance. There are treacheries which will place cards. Also, this is a permanent. This has 3 threat per player, but the main scheme, let's go back to that. The main scheme makes that permanent. Here we go. Operation Zero Tolerance gains permanent. So it comes into play. It cannot leave play. And here's another way this force responds. After threat is placed here, if there is at least 5 per player threat here, the first player places the top card of their deck face down under zero tolerance. And then you would remove 5. So that is a lot of fun. I do like also that this does not remove all of the threat here. It only removes 5. So I've had this at 4. And then I got a huge scheme that placed like 6 on. So now it's up to 10. I take 5 off. It's at 5. Now I need to clear all of this threat off, or some of this threat off, before I get to the next villain phase, or it's just going to pop again. So it's a really fun scenario. It is like Taskmaster in that Mutants at the Mall, once you defeat it, you're going to get Jubilee. She's actually just on the back side of that. And then this scenario also has captives. Now, they did learn from the Rise of Red Skull, from Taskmaster. These are not 0-cost allies. These are 2-cost allies. And they all have different abilities, but definitely makes it a little harder than Taskmaster because you're not getting these in for free. The Abduction Protocols is the one here that gives you these. Now, this is a little bit less threat in solo. This is only 4 in solo, so it's a little bit easier to clear than Captured by Hydra. This problem, though, is this has a crisis icon, and you don't want these sitting around because if you leave those sitting around, you can't clear that main, and that main is going to put cards into Project Wide Awake, or not Project Wide Awake, Operation Zero Tolerance. So you really want to be able to get rid of those crisis icons so you can clear threat from here so you're not going to lose because of Operation Zero Tolerance. I've played this scenario with every mutant that's come out, except for Bishop. Bishop I actually haven't played yet, but I've played it with Magic, Iceman, and everything that came before them. So all except for Bishop I've played this scenario with, and I will do it with the rest of them as well. Now, this one isn't exactly my most played scenario, at least for mutants, because I've run through Next Evolution 27 times. But as far as a single scenario, not within campaign, Sentinel is my most played, at least as far as mutants go. I love to team mutants up against this scenario just to see how they do, because I think this is such an iconic X-Men moment. And I say X-Men moment, but I mean mutants. This is such an iconic mutant moment that I just love playing this scenario with all the new mutants when they come out. So that's my list. That is Claw, we've got Crossbones, Taskmaster, Collector 1, which everyone hates, and Project Wide Awake. Those are my most played scenarios. I love them a lot. And let me know in the comments what your top 5 are, or maybe just your top 1 if you don't want to do all 5. I always like seeing how other people are playing. I also want to say, among these, the only one I'm not playing on Expert right now is Collector 1. I still play him on Standard just because we're getting extra cards in the encounter deck, or in the collection when we play on Expert. Now that doesn't mean I'm not going to play him on Expert, but I haven't yet. So again, let me know in the comments what your top 5 or top 1 villains are, your most played villains. Thank you so much for watching today, and I hope you have a wonderful day.